Hi, it's James. Welcome back to the channel. So glad you could be here with us. We're going to finish Matthew chapter 23 today. I'm a little frustrated because I already did this video, didn't realize the microphone wasn't on, and so I went to edit it, and there was no sound. But stuff like that happens. You just have to push through and persevere. All right. We're going to read verses 37 through 39. I know it's a small section, but it's an important section. So let's get right to the text. Verse 37, O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to it. How often I would have gathered your children together as a hen gathers her brood under her wings, and you are not willing. See, your house is left to you desolate. For I tell you, you will not see me again until you say, Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. So, I want to make a very clear point that Jesus, even though he was speaking against what the leaders in Jerusalem were doing, that he loved these people. And that's point number one. Jesus cared about the people in Jerusalem, even the leaders that did not agree with him. Now, unfortunately, I lost my place, so if you give me a second, this right here is James Montgomery Boyce's commentary on the Gospel of Matthew. Here's a very important point. He says on page 495. We all have. No, I'm sorry. Try that again. We have all known people who like to cry woe and call down wrath on sinners, but no one is ready to speak about judgment who has not first shed tears to those who are affected. Luke said that Jesus literally wept over Jerusalem. See Luke 19:41 through 44. You and I have seen many wrongs. There is much evil in the world, but have we really wept for anyone? See, Jesus cared for these folks. And when we share the gospel with other people, when we try to share the good news about Jesus, we need to do it with an attitude of caring and compassion. Yes, it's true that unbelievers do not always act in loving ways. Heck, there are times when many believers don't act in loving ways. Look at the way people drive. They just cut right in front of you. You go to the grocery store, people cut in front of you, and they just walk right in front of you, and they don't even blink an eye. We need to love these people. We need to care for these people because many of them don't know Christ, and without him, it's eternal torment. So remember, I do believe in that God has his chosen people, but we don't know who those people are. Our job is to love people, share the gospel with others, and allow God to change their hearts. My second point, where it talks about you were not willing. Some people will try to say that this means that people can resist the will of God. Jesus wasn't talking about all of the people in Jerusalem. He was talking about the leadership in Jerusalem. It was the Pharisees and the Sadducees specifically that resisted the will of God. They resisted Jesus' teachings, and they didn't want to do things his way. The Pharisees wanted to do it their way. Pharisees felt that the occupation of Jerusalem by the Romans was a judgment from God, so if we just get back to the law, and by the way, that's the air conditioning, so if it interferes with the video, I apologize ahead of time. If the Pharisees felt if they got back to the law, that God would vindicate them and somehow bring a deliverer and kick the Romans out. That was their motive for doing what they did. They didn't just come up with rules just to come up with rules. But God had a better way, and that's through Jesus, and that's being saved by grace through faith. The third point I want to talk about is the history. Jesus mentioned that Jerusalem was the city that kills the prophets and stoned those who were sent to it. There were lots of prophets that were sent to Jerusalem, that were sent to Israel, and sometimes the leaders listened, as in the case of, say, Hezekiah. A lot of times the leaders didn't listen. And so Jesus knew this is a pattern that's been going on for a long time. And so when he went to Jerusalem and he's confronting the leaders about some of their sin, that they were going to turn him over to the Romans to be executed. Thankfully, we know on a spiritual level that the cross is there because Jesus is the good shepherd in John 10, and Jesus lays down his life for the sheep. So, anyway, that is Matthew 23. In my notes, I wrote down 22 by mistake. 23. Next week, or I should say Thursday, we'll get to Matthew chapter 24. We'll at least start the chapter. And then Saturday, I'll do the podcast. Don't forget about the podcast, folks. I'm doing a lot of good stuff on church history. I'm using this book by Nick Needham. It's called 2,000 Years of Christ's Power. I do believe I've finished chapter 8. Saturday, we'll get to chapter 9. There's a lot of good information in here. I think a lot of people are, quite frankly, very... they don't know a whole lot about church history. I'll just say that. I don't want to say ignorant. I think that's a bad word. It has a bad connotation behind it. But we as church leaders, as pastors and teachers, need to equip our people so they understand where stuff came from. I mean, the whole thing in the 4th century, which I talked about last week, about Arianism, and I mean, they wrestled with the concept of the Trinity and the relationship between the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. And are they the same substance, or do they have a similar substance? That stuff means a lot, because if there's a group out there that says, well, Jesus was a good teacher. No, he was the Son of God. John 8:58, Jesus used the words, I am, which is a direct quote from Exodus 3:14. Jesus wasn't saying he was a good teacher. He was claiming divinity, and the Pharisees wanted him killed for that. So, anyway, well, please check out the podcast. We'll do a video on Thursday. Anyway, from the bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you to everybody who's a subscriber. I love you guys, and I will see you later this week.